you see as the implications here for not just Uber, but also New Yorkers?
Well, I think we're going to see a drop in the quality of ride-hail service in New York. I've been frustrated by the storyline that Uber and Lyft are solely responsible for the increase in congestion that we've seen in New York. I'm sure they play a role, but we've also seen unprecedented population growth. We've got all these e-commerce delivery trucks parked in small roads, sort of jamming up traffic. The subway is crumbling, so people are looking for alternatives. So I don't see the, the approach of targeting just one contributor as being sensible. So I think the one sort of public transit service that New Yorkers really look to, and that has steadily been increasing in quality over the last few years, is now going to be capped. And I think it's really going to hit the people in Brooklyn and Queens, because once you have a cap on the number of cars, as demand grows, the cars will migrate away from the outer boroughs and to the more profitable Manhattan market. So overall, I think that the cap by itself is bad news for New York. The minimum wage, let's wait and see.
So in addition to a cap, what would you advocate? Would you advocate some sort of additional legislation here?
Well, I think there are two separate issues here, right? One is we think that there may be an increase in congestion, and the other is we don't think drivers are earning enough money. I think lots of people feel that drivers are not earning enough money in certain markets. Academically, this proposal for a freelancer minimum wage seems interesting. I don't know what the unintended consequences are going to be. It might sort of channel a lot of demand towards the more skilled drivers and sort of leave the other drivers out of the market and shrink the driver pool. But on the congestion front, like many people, I'm in favor of some sort of congestion pricing where, you have a higher price that you pay or a higher sort of toll that you pay during peak hours in areas that actually sort of are suffering from increased traffic congestion. Simply capping the number of Uber and Lyft cars, on the other hand, isn't actually going to make a dent in this congestion. It's just going to take cars away from the outer boroughs and into the congested sort of midtown Manhattan.
Caroline, elaborate for us on the arguments on both sides that this could help or hurt consumers.
Yeah, I think there are arguments that to a certain extent it could hurt consumers, like we're just hearing, limiting supply, particularly in the outer boroughs such as Brooklyn and Queens. And also, I think this is why the ad campaign that was so virulent the last time. In 2015, this is what de Blasio tried to pass, and it failed to get through the council, I think in a large part, because Uber and Lyft, they managed to strike a really heartfelt campaign that in particular this would limit cars going to those of ethnic minorities, and they felt that in some way perhaps yellow taxis had been underserving that particular population, and that seemed to pull at particular heartstrings at that point. This is something that needs to be tackled as to whether there is any lack of equality if particularly you come out of the suburbs and you focus particularly on the wealthier Manhattan, and that's because you can really boost up your earnings. So this could hurt consumers in that respect. And as in many had been saying, that this isn't actually going to tackle at the root of the problem when it comes to congestion, because this is to do with freight, this is to do with tourism, this isn't actually to do with purely more ride-hailing companies out there. But this is something that we're going to see, many a city and many a country have to grapple with, how you really tackle regulating these sorts of companies. Here in Europe, we had just earlier. Sorry, do go on.
I was going to say I agree completely. I mean, I think that we've seen different sort of experiments with regulation roll out over the last 6 years around the world. I think a lot of people thought that there would be a domino effect after London banned Uber. But I think that we've reached a point where, while many cities around the world will be waiting to see what happens in New York, I think in particular with the minimum wage, perhaps also with the cap, I'm not worried for Uber and Lyft that a whole bunch of other cities are going to jump on the bandwagon and say, we're going to cap Uber and Lyft as well. Because I think, smart city governments realize that this is the future of public transportation. that this is something that their citizens like. And so, New York City does have the unique problem of having to deal with sort of millions of dollars spent by people on medallions, and how to address that problem. But I think that that's a problem that's unique to New York City. But anyway, it's interesting days for regulating the sharing economy yet again.